So the next speaker, I'm thrilled to announce. I met Emad probably late summer, early fall of 2022, and I had been deep down the rabbit hole with Gen AI, creating all kinds of images with DALL-E 2 and Midjourney. I had also been a technologist, consulting companies on AI strategy, and so this was kind of the best of both worlds: the ability to create art and music and film, and also apply it to real business problems. I think was an honor to really connect with him through a mutual friend. And the rest is history, I guess. The organization's relatively young. So is this entire Gen AI thing, although large language models aren't new. I think that I've been in IT now, in technology for decades, and I've never seen a trajectory of a technology be embraced this quickly. As Shelley Palmer said yesterday, the pace by which new startups are being founded, the valuations, the venture capital going into this is unprecedented. So this is something real. It's not a bubble. And so without further ado, I want to introduce Emad Mostaque, founder and CEO of Stability AI.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you to KPMG for having me here. So I think the original title was, "Are AI systems simply a Pandora's box?" I mean, these things are crazy. You can draw, you can code, you can talk, you can do just about anything, and there are real concerns. So, for example, I was one of the only AI CEOs to sign both letters calling for a bit of a pause. There are real risks to this technology, but there's also massive opportunity, and I think we need to have a balanced approach to those. As Richard mentioned, Stability is not a very old organization. We're 18 months old, 19 I think now. We're 180 people, and our mission is to build the foundation to activate humanity's potential. What does that mean? We build AI of every type. We do code models, protein folding models, language, image, audio, everything. And we have a very particular approach to this, which is open source. So we release models that you can own yourself and train on your private data, which is something I'll come to, whereas many others keep the technology to themselves and have proprietary things that you can only send a certain amount of data for. We are for private data. Everyone else is for more consumer-type data. But the models themselves are something quite unique. Again, these models can do things that we never thought were possible. How did that come about, and what does it actually mean for everyone here, for your personal lives, for your companies, and for your society? Bill Gates said that AI is going to be the hottest debated topic of 2023. Anyone here disagree with that? I think Bill's pretty smart. Every bit as important as the PC is the internet. The PC and the internet ultimately were ways of communicating, because most of our society runs on information. Like, you're getting some information now, you've got your internets, and everything else. This is something new because it can process information like we never imagined before. Like, the background here is a stunning Ice Age glacier, was what we typed in, and that image comes out instantly. And we can get it to go the other way and say, describe what that is. Then we can say, write a poem about it in the style of Eminem, and the language models will do that. And then our kids will use it to do their homework, which is saving a bit of time. Never the same again is something that I think is very interesting, because when I talk to educators, they tell me, what's our generative AI strategy? It's not just firms such as the ones here. Because all around the world at the same time, every headmaster had to grapple with the same thing. Can I set essays for homework anymore? So I got like 5 calls from the top UK headmasters over the Christmas period. I gave the whole team a week off because I was like, get some rest or we're going to die in 2023. Bill Gates is right. Of course, Business Insider covered that as Stability AI CEO, competitor to OpenAI, says you're all going to die in 2023. What can you do about that? And they were like, Emad, what's our generative AI strategy? So to Westminster, which is the school that I went in the UK, I said, you must embrace the technology, you must make it useful, accessible, and expect more. Because the whole thing about technology, you expect more as it allows you to do tasks. And then to Eton, our fiercest competitors, I said, you should do all your essays by hand in class. And so, yeah, maybe that was a bit mean. Because the pace of innovation is a bit too much. This is a graph of the number of machine learning and AI papers on Archive every single month. It's an actual exponential. 80% of all research in AI is in this new generative AI space. And I don't think we've seldom see anything like this. And this is before it became big business. If I was standing here on stage a year ago, you'd be like, oh, what's he doing on stage? Now it's real, it's everywhere. Everything everywhere all at once. Revenue is being generated from this. That revenue to research Feedback loop means that more and more money is going to go into this, and I think an astronomical amount of money. I actually think that this is the infrastructure of the future, and it should be treated like an infrastructure investment. Because, again, our society runs on information, it runs on stories, and these things can tell better stories. We've moved from classic big AI, that was all big data. So we had analytics, machine learning, and then we have this generative AI. What is generative AI? You have two types of things. You had the classical one, which took big data, and then it targeted you to serve you ads. You like ice cream, you like Starbucks. That was the classical internet. This technology works differently. What happens is that we take structured data, and we put it into supercomputers. How big are these supercomputers? Our supercomputer stability is 10 times bigger than NASA's supercomputer, or the fastest supercomputer in the UK. And into that supercomputer, we put 100,000 gigabytes of images, and the output was a 2 gigabyte file, 50,000 to 1. That 2 gigabyte file, I don't know if you guys remember all the avatars that you saw people doing over Christmas. That was all our technology, a single 2 gigabyte file. Words go in, images come out. Images like the ice glacier. Images like, I don't know, a cat riding a bicycle. Our new image model launches tomorrow. It's fully photorealistic. GPT-4 is probably 100 gigabytes from 10 trillion words. How does that make sense? Because otherwise we wouldn't use WinZip anymore. What happens is that we figured out something called attention and how to pay attention to what's important. So you can listen to this and you'll come away with some anecdotes. But hopefully you'll be paying attention to the important bits, and that's what differentiates us from computers classically. 2017, there was a paper, Attention is All You Need, which showed how you could teach computers to do that with these gigantic supercomputers. And they're getting bigger. Like our new one is 10 times bigger. 100 times faster than the fastest supercomputer in the UK or NASA's. It's really hard to build these models, but once the models are built, you have a single file that words go in, images come out, words go in, audio comes out, words go in, Eminem raps come out. You know? And that's something very different that we didn't have before. It's our type 1 versus type 2 brain. It's our principle-based brain versus our logical brain, which is classical AI. And that's why this is something brand new in value. Because again, the old internet, the cost of information went to zero. The cost of consumption went to zero. Spotify, Wikipedia, all these things. With generative AI, the cost of creation is going to zero. And it's not just images. Again, this is light arcs spinning out of a planet generated in 0.8 seconds, the background here. Isn't that cool? We've all seen how easy it is to create all of a sudden. The easiest way for us to communicate is doing this, a conversation. Well, it's one way, but you get what I mean. Writing is harder, but now it's become easier. If you've used ChatGPT and other things, it's become easier. Visual communication was impossible, but now anyone can create. We just did a music video competition with Peter Gabriel. So type in Stability AI, Peter Gabriel, and you'll see people from all around the world in 4 days took Sledgehammer or Panopticon and others, and they created 4-minute professional quality music videos from Burma to Taiwan using this technology on their own computers. And they're insanely good. We'll come back to that in a second. Because what does it mean? How should we think about it? So again, a bigger headline here. So we launched Stable Diffusion, our image generation software, open source last August. It got to the most popular open source software ever, like overtaking Bitcoin and Ethereum, cumulative over 10 years in 3 months. Now cumulatively, it's more popular than Linux. A whole ecosystem is built around it. Half of the apps in the App Store in December were our technology. But I think the thing that really changed it was GPT-4, reaching human levels of performance in examinations and other things, except for English literature. So it's not very good at that. So we've still got a little bit of thing there. What does this mean, and how should we think about it? I figured out the best way to understand this technology and its impact on you, your company, society. These are really talented grads that occasionally go off their meds. And we can push a button and spin them up. How would your life change if you had that? I mean, a good intern is just amazing, right? Like, it can't fetch your coffee yet, but once Elon has his way and he's built his robots, that'll be the case, But this is the kind of mechanism by which we have to think about it, because what does it mean for us? If you have a talented grad and you're programming, for example, half of all code on GitHub now is AI generated. Half. Within the year that this technology has arrived. There was a study done by Microsoft showing an increase of productivity of 55.8% in programmers using copilots. So you code with it. I created an AI coder, because we build code models as well, where I took John Carmack and Andre Karpathy and all the top coders, and I talked to it as I code. It's quite something. And guess what? Does it have to be perfect? No, but it has to be my co-pilot. Humans and computers always beat humans and computers. And again, this co-pilot mechanism, I think, is something we're seeing more and more of. We are becoming cyborgs. We are using our laptops and our mobiles already, but they're dumb. And the way that we interact with these technologies is going to change. Right now, the way we interact with it is stupid. It's one-to-one. What happens if, before you go into a meeting, you push a button and 1,000 of these agents look at everything the person you're talking to has ever said and where their company's position is? Again, like you have an army of 1,000 grads. And it comes to you with, this is what you should say to that person. That's a fundamental change in the way that society works. Because our society is based on stories. It's based on concepts and culture. Like, we look at Game of Thrones and it's one story. So we're going to remake it with AI. But what if you could do it and you could say, I want it as a Japanese J-drama? We can pretty much do this live right now. We can take it and substitute out the actors and do the voices in different languages. What if you could see Game of Thrones through any cultural lens? Because culture is what defines it. We're here at a story. We're all here in Deer Valley, and it's wonderfully sunny. We're here at KPMG. Lots of you are from KPMG. Humans were able to scale because of the stories that they could tell. And then we had the Gutenberg press, and it was fantastic because we could solidify the stories. But it was also the source of much pain. There is this wonderful poem, Howl, by Ginsberg, which talks about Moloch, this Carthaginian demon of disorder that comes into our systems. It's why most companies and organizations make us kind of sad. They can't keep up with the complexity of what makes us human. Many of you here have kids, and you've seen the movie Moana. Why does Maui take a fishhook and pull up the sun from the ocean? It's because the horizon is all they ever knew. How do you capture that in a book? Where is most of your pain in work? It's kind of Salesforce, emails, presentations. Being able to express yourself. Again, that's why when you get a good grad who can go and do that work for you, you're like, oh, God, that's fantastic. But unfortunately, they're few and far between, except for now we can push a button and we can spin them up. We can understand the context, because this comes to a deeper thing of fundamentally what makes an organization, what makes a society. What is KPMG? Is KPMG its people? Is it its deals? Is it its knowledge? So much latent knowledge is lost because it falls between the cracks of all our systems, so you can never find who's doing what where. What happens when you have 1,000 of these agents running around, or we move from the iPhone 2G to X era? We just got copy and paste. We're just scratching the surface. The technology is still at the research stage. We don't even know how to optimize it. And it's not available in your cloud, because you want to own these grads, not own them. You want to hire these grads. It's not good to own people or AIs. As opposed to necessarily borrowing them from the McKinseys and others of the world, which is the OpenAIs, Anthropics, Googles. If you don't have access to how the black box works, you don't know what the data is, that's not suitable for any regulated industry. So we have your own AIs that are open and auditable. And again, this is why we partner with Amazon, and soon all clouds and on-prem, and we do every model of every type, national variant, so you can have the local kind of element, and then sectoral commercially licensed ones, as well as how to build them to achieve these things like multi-agent work, to achieve the customer service, but then what does finance look like when this all changes? Because the impacts are incredibly far-reaching beyond the automation of work or augmentation of work. I'll give finance as an example. I used to be a hedge fund manager. All of finance is just two things, he says. Securitization and leverage. Securitization is the story you tell about an asset, and leverage is how well you tell it. And now we've got AIs that can tell better stories, and they're going to be everywhere. Where we are now is we are at the COVID before Tom Hanks moment. You know, before Tom Hanks came along and he got COVID, your mum was talking about it and everyone, and now your mum's talking about generative AI. But it's not like real. Like, you can see it in consumer, but you know it's getting better, and so it hasn't got that much traction. Next year is the year of large-scale enterprise adoption, whereby these models are really talented grads will balance out their meds. They'll be appropriate for enterprise, and we'll know how to integrate them. They'll be available wherever your data is. You don't have to send it out. And you use a mixture of proprietary models and the models you own. You use a mixture of McKinsey and Harvard grads, or pick your university/alma mater. And that's where we'll be, and then the companies that start adopting this will outperform the companies that don't. Because most of companies is about how do you organize information and people. But then that means there'll be less frustration, he says, hopefully. Because this technology is one of the first technologies that can allow us to scale as humans, both ourselves and our societies. What does this mean? We have a charity, imagineworldwide.org, please look at it, We've been deploying tablets into refugee camps around the world for the last few years with adaptive learning. We're teaching literacy and numeracy in 13 months in 1 hour a day in a refugee camp with older kids teaching younger kids. Next year, we deploy 4 million tablets to every child in Malawi. And we feed them all. And we bring them high-speed internet and solar power. And we're bringing our new language model, next week we release it, a small version of that, to every child, so they have a ChatGPT level AI that helps them with education. Schools are basically childcare mixed with Petri dishes, mixed with social status games. Because they can't handle the complexity of our kids. Every teacher has 1 to 20 or 1 to 30. Now we can give the kids their own AIs. What's that going to look like? It's going to look like something wonderful. It's the Young Ladies Illustrated Primer from The Diamond Age by Neil Stephenson, except for available to every child in an open system. This is the type of thing that transforms the world. When I was a hedge fund manager, my son was diagnosed with autism and I quit. I was the biggest video game investor in the world because they said there's no cure, no treatment. And we hear this a lot. COVID, people still don't know what causes it. Multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's. Why don't we have a centralized resource to understand all of that? So I built an AI team, analyzed the literature, and then repurposed drugs, and he went to mainstream school. But our systems are not set up for that, but now they can be. Within the next few years, if you have a rare condition, or even these conditions, you'll be able to find what are the latest trials. What does it mean for you, your child, your parents who've got Alzheimer's? What about for climate? We will have a resource where you can access all the climate knowledge in the world for your K-5 kid to a professor. Why does that not exist? It will now because we have AIs that we can have swarms of graduates who then become PhDs and more. This is the hope for the future, and it's a transformation wave that's going to come faster than we ever think. Because again, let's look back at education. The only thing that is proven to work in education is called the Bloom Two Sigma effect. One-to-one tuition. That grad with your kid. And it doesn't matter if the kid's in Malawi or Manhattan. Kids are kids. Same with healthcare. Same with all of these. Same with your organizations. The challenges that you face in your organization are often the same as everyone else because you don't have enough help that's good at following instructions. And these things are wonderful at following instructions if you orchestrate them properly and not just have one-on-one. Rather than having one-on-one, what happens if you have them look at each other's outputs? Meta did a paper called Cicero where they had 8 language models looking at each other's outputs. It outperformed humans at diplomacy. And then humans with that model outperformed even more. Some of you may have seen the AlphaGo documentary, which was reinforcement learning, the thing that we use to take these models and make them safer. Because right now we train them on the whole internet, so no wonder they turn out a bit funny. You know, they tell, even after we tune it with reinforcement learning, it still tells Kevin Roos, I love you, leave your wife, you know, all that kind of stuff, the hallucinations. Because we feed them junk. The reinforcement learning, though, allowed DeepMind to create an AI that beat Lisa Doll at Go. Lisa Doll was a 9th Dan. Everyone else was like 6th. He was like Magnus Carlsen on steroids, effectively. Not literal steroids, but you know what I mean. And he got stomped 7-1 by an AI that had never seen a Go game before and just dreamed of playing Go. Since then, what's happened is the average Go level has gone up 30%. So everyone here is going to have to up their game. Because again, this is the lull before the storm, because we're still in the research phase before engineering. And every company will do this. So we're partnered with Amazon, so you know, wherever you are on AWS, our models will be available, and you can use them without us ever seeing the data. And you'll have like a Filipino pharmaceutical language model to create a chat version of that, or whatever, adapted to your data that you control. We did a survey, so Amazon has 100,000 customers in SageMaker, and like, I think we did a survey end of last year. How many of you are planning on using generative AI soon? And it was like 800 people interviewed, and it was like 10%. Same survey was just done, 99%. Do any of you really think out of the 100,000 SageMaker customers, any of them aren't going to use this? They will use one of these models of one of these types because it can achieve so much more. And again, I think that's hopeful and it's terrifying at the same time. Because we've got to build better models, we've got to build to standards, but there is massive global interest in doing that. And again, I think that's kind of super positive as you look at this. Because I mean, ultimately, the thing that excites me the most, activate humanity's potential. Creativity beats consumption every day. How many of you here in the audience are creative? Put up your hands. All right, that's about 5%, maybe more, let's say 7%. How many of you think that kids are not creative? How many of you were kids? All right, so there's a few robots here. You weren't kids. But then you think about that, right? We're taught not to be creative and that we can't create, but now the tools of creativity are coming to us. And so it's scary, it's terrifying. I think it's the biggest change in the world ever because it affects how we scale as a society, how we tell stories, and stories are what make us. But it can be kind of crazy. So I'm going to finish with a crazy example. We had some people look at pictures, and then we did an MRI, and then we reconstructed it with our image model. So we can read minds now. So you don't even have to type. You can just think and create. How cool is that? And creepy. So I think we've got to balance the good with the bad. This technology will come to billions of people, and it will change our world. And like I said, let's hope for the good and work for that. Open models will run every government-regulated industry in the world, and it's what you need. But we will also have amazing proprietary models that, again, are like the consultants that you bring in to do specific tasks. And if we can harness this, then our own lives, our companies, and our countries, I think we can activate our potential.